Men, listen carefully. What a woman says reveals far more than you might realize. Words are not just communication. They are a window into mindset, priorities, and intentions. In modern dating, certain phrases women use can be red flags, signaling a lack of respect, commitment, or genuine interest. Ignoring these signs is one of the fastest ways to waste time, energy, and emotional investment. Many men fall into the trap of overanalyzing or rationalizing what she says. They interpret excuses, complaints, or subtle statements as temporary moods or miscommunications. The truth is simpler. Language is a direct reflection of her values and intentions. When a woman consistently expresses certain ideas or phrases, she is giving you a clear message about how she sees you, the relationship, and her willingness to invest emotionally. This video will break down the 5 most critical statements that every man must recognize. Each phrase reveals patterns in thinking, emotional priorities, and behavioral tendencies that can indicate the relationship is not healthy or sustainable. Understanding these phrases allows men to act decisively, maintain self-respect, and avoid getting trapped in dynamics where attraction, respect, and value are imbalanced. We'll cover why these statements matter psychologically, how they affect attraction, and what your response should be. These are not about manipulation. They are about awareness and clarity. Recognizing these verbal cues early saves you from frustration, disappointment, and wasted effort, and it positions you as a man who values his standards and emotional boundaries. 1. I don't need you. When a woman says, "I don't need you," it might sound like independence, but in reality, it can be a subtle red flag in modern dating. On the surface, self-sufficiency is attractive. Women who are confident and independent are often emotionally strong and capable. The problem arises when this statement isn't paired with respect, consideration, or genuine connection. Instead, it can signal a mindset where she views you as optional rather than valuable. Men often misinterpret this phrase. They may think, "She's confident, that's attractive." While independence is appealing, dismissiveness is not. When a woman frames your presence as unnecessary, it can indicate that your emotional investment is not reciprocated. A relationship thrives when both parties value and rely on each other in balanced ways, not when one partner signals that the other is expendable. Psychologically, saying "I don't need you" often reflects a prioritization of self-interest over mutual respect. It may stem from a pattern of avoiding emotional vulnerability or testing boundaries to see how much a man will pursue. This creates a dynamic where attraction and investment become conditional and one-sided. The man who continues to invest after hearing this phrase risks lowering his perceived value and reinforcing a pattern where his attention is taken for granted. Men should also notice behavioral patterns accompanying this statement. Does she expect constant attention without offering emotional reciprocity? Does she disregard your boundaries or dismiss your needs? If so, her words are a clear indicator that the relationship may not align with your values. Emotional reciprocity is key to sustainable attraction. The safest response when you hear this phrase is observation and boundary reinforcement. You don't need to argue, convince, or chase. Simply recognize that her mindset may not match your standards and evaluate whether continuing to invest is worthwhile. Respecting yourself by walking away when repeated red flags appear preserves your confidence, value, and attraction power. In modern dating, men who ignore this warning often find themselves over-investing emotionally, chasing attention, and struggling to maintain respect. By acknowledging that "I don't need you" can indicate misaligned priorities, you gain clarity and avoid wasting energy. Your emotional independence and standards are your greatest assets. This phrase is a test of boundaries and a measure of your self-respect. Recognize it, reflect on the behavior behind it, and make decisions that preserve your value. If repeated, it's a clear signal. Leave, don't rationalize, and maintain your standards. 2. I can do better. When a woman says, I can do better, it's more than a casual statement. It's a window into her mindset, priorities, and respect for you. On the surface, it may seem like playful confidence or an expression of independence. In reality, it signals dissatisfaction with the connection and often a lack of appreciation for what you bring to the table. Men who ignore this phrase are walking into a trap of lowered respect, overinvestment, and emotional imbalance. Psychologically, this phrase communicates comparison. She is signaling that your value, in her eyes, is negotiable. Rather than focusing on partnership, mutual respect, or building attraction, she positions herself as judge of worth. This immediately shifts the dynamic. Instead of her being a partner in connection, she establishes a hierarchy where she evaluates and measures your value against imagined alternatives. For men, this is a critical warning. Relationships thrive on mutual appreciation, not constant evaluation. Many men make the mistake of defending themselves, over-explaining, or trying to prove their worth in response. This reaction reinforces the problem. Your attention, energy, and effort become a tool for validation rather than genuine connection. Every attempt to convince her otherwise signals that you are chasing approval rather than maintaining your standards. Over time, this erodes attraction and shifts the psychological balance in her favor, leaving you invested and undervalued. Another layer is behavioral consistency. When a woman uses this phrase, observe patterns. Does she frequently compare you to others, criticize your choices, or subtly undermine your confidence? These behaviors reveal that her mindset is rooted in evaluation rather than genuine partnership. Repeated exposure indicates that she prioritizes perceived superiority over authentic connection. The solution is simple, but often difficult for men. Do not rationalize, debate, or chase. Recognize that this statement reflects priorities misaligned with respect and commitment. Your emotional independence and standards are far more attractive than attempts to prove worth. Walking away preserves value, reinforces self-respect, and prevents wasted effort on a dynamic that cannot sustain mutual attraction. In modern dating, ignoring this phrase leads to repeated disappointment. Men who fail to recognize the implications often find themselves overcompensating emotionally, investing disproportionate energy, and experiencing frustration when their effort is undervalued. By acknowledging, I can do better, as a clear psychological red flag, you protect yourself, maintain confidence, and signal that your attention is not negotiable. This phrase is not about temporary disagreement or mood. It's a reflection of mindset. If she communicates dissatisfaction in this way, it's a clear signal. Her perception of your value is misaligned with your standards. The strongest response is decisive clarity. Do not chase, do not rationalize. Walk away and preserve your self-respect. 3. I'm not ready for this. When a woman says, I'm not ready for this, it may sound innocent or situational, but in the context of modern dating, it often reveals deeper priorities and emotional patterns that can signal a mismatch. While some statements of unreadiness are genuine reflections of timing, repeated use or vague application can indicate avoidance, inconsistency, or an unwillingness to invest fully. For men, this phrase is a critical psychological cue that demands careful attention. Psychologically, this phrase often reflects avoidance of responsibility, accountability, or commitment. When she consistently claims she's not ready, it suggests she may be prioritizing freedom, validation, or external interests over a balanced partnership. This creates a dynamic where the man is left guessing, investing effort without clarity, and potentially chasing a connection that cannot meet his needs. Emotional investment in someone who is chronically not ready erodes self-respect over time. Men frequently make the mistake of rationalizing this phrase, assuming they can wait it out or help her become ready. While patience is a virtue, emotional energy is finite. Investing in uncertainty repeatedly signals that your presence and attention are conditional rather than earned. Instead of increasing attraction, it can create dependency, frustration, and an imbalance in the relational hierarchy. She may unconsciously learn that she can delay commitment without consequences, which undermines respect and attraction. Another important aspect is behavioral patterns that accompany this phrase. Notice if she consistently avoids deeper connection, shifts topics away from the future, or keeps emotional boundaries vague. These behaviors indicate that her not ready statement is less about timing and more about mindset. It often correlates with seeking attention or validation without a willingness to match your investment. The most effective approach is clear observation and boundary enforcement. Do not overinvest in response to this phrase. Instead, assess whether her words align with actions. A single statement may be legitimate, but repeated or vague statements reveal misalignment. Men who maintain composure, protect their emotional energy, and prioritize partners who demonstrate alignment avoid wasted effort and frustration. In modern dating, understanding the implications of "I'm not ready for this" saves men from overinvestment and emotional burnout. This phrase, when patterns are observed, is a warning sign. She may be unwilling or unable to provide the engagement, respect, and emotional reciprocity that sustain a healthy, balanced relationship. Your attention and presence are valuable. Invest them where they are genuinely appreciated. Recognize this phrase as a clear indicator of potential incompatibility. If it recurs, it's not about timing or patience, it's about priorities. Men who respond with awareness, self-respect, and decisive boundaries maintain attraction, protect emotional energy, and avoid relationships that compromise their standards. 4. I don't want anything serious. When a woman says, "I don't want anything serious," it is one of the clearest verbal cues that the relationship may not align with your goals or standards. On the surface, it may seem harmless, a statement about timing, emotional readiness, or preference. In reality, it is a direct reflection of priorities, intentions, and mindset. Men who ignore this phrase risk wasting time, energy, and emotional investment on someone whose goals are misaligned. Psychologically, this statement signals a lack of willingness to commit or engage in mutual long-term investment. While casual connections have their place, a woman who explicitly states she does not want seriousness is effectively setting boundaries for the relationship. Ignoring these boundaries often leads to frustration and imbalance. Men who attempt to change her mind or persuade her to invest emotionally frequently find themselves chasing validation and attention rather than building reciprocal connection. The dynamics behind this statement are often rooted in self-interest, emotional testing, or avoidance of responsibility. When she frames the relationship as casual, she is communicating that her priorities lie elsewhere, whether with personal freedom, external attention, or maintaining control of the emotional hierarchy. In such cases, continuing to invest emotionally without reciprocal commitment diminishes your perceived value and signals neediness, which undermines attraction. Behavioral patterns accompanying this phrase are critical to observe. Does she avoid discussions about the future, minimize emotional vulnerability, or consistently prioritize her own agenda? These patterns reveal alignment or misalignment with your standards. A woman who consistently demonstrates casual intentions while receiving your emotional investment is creating a dynamic in which your time and attention are undervalued. The most effective response is decisiveness. Recognize that this phrase is not negotiable. It communicates her boundaries and intentions clearly. Do not attempt to rationalize, over-explain, or persuade her otherwise. Respect for yourself and your goals requires acknowledging when a partner's intentions are incompatible with your own. Walking away preserves your confidence, autonomy, and perceived value. In modern dating, men who ignore, "I don't want anything serious," often experience repeated disappointment, emotional frustration, and lowered self-respect. By acknowledging this statement as a warning sign, you maintain clarity and avoid investing where your standards are not met. Emotional energy is finite, and attention should be reserved for connections that align with mutual goals, respect, and attraction. In short, "I don't want anything serious" is a straightforward reflection of her priorities. If repeated or paired with consistent behavior indicating casual interest, it signals misalignment. Men who maintain self-respect, observe patterns, and act decisively avoid emotional compromise, retain value, and preserve their ability to invest in relationships that are truly reciprocal and meaningful. 5. You're too much work. When a woman says, "You're too much work," it may initially seem like a casual complaint, but in reality, it's a strong indicator of her mindset and priorities. This phrase reveals how she perceives effort, investment, and emotional dynamics in a relationship. Men who hear this statement repeatedly must recognize it as a clear warning sign. She is signaling that she does not value your time, energy, or emotional contribution in a meaningful way. Psychologically, this phrase reflects a lack of willingness to invest in a balanced partnership. Relationships require effort from both sides, but when a woman frames your investment as burdensome, it reveals that her focus is self-centered rather than collaborative. She is not seeking mutual growth or emotional reciprocity. Instead, she positions your effort as a problem rather than a contribution to connection, subtly undermining respect and attraction. Many men make the mistake of responding defensively, trying harder, or overcompensating. This reaction only reinforces the dynamic. By attempting to prove that you are worth the work, you signal that your attention and energy are negotiable, effectively validating her perspective. Attraction and respect decrease when one party must constantly defend their value. In contrast, maintaining composure, reinforcing boundaries, and observing the pattern communicates high value and emotional independence. Behavioral patterns often accompany this phrase. Does she complain consistently, avoid compromise, or criticize your effort while contributing little herself? These behaviors indicate that her engagement is conditional and transactional rather than genuine. Over time, this imbalance erodes self-respect, confidence, and attraction. Men who continue investing under these conditions risk creating a relationship where they are constantly giving while receiving minimal appreciation or emotional connection. The best response is decisiveness and boundary awareness. Recognize that "you're too much work" is a reflection of priorities and mindset. It is not a challenge to be solved or a problem to be fixed. It is a signal that the relationship may not meet your standards. Walking away in this scenario preserves your value, reinforces self-respect, and prevents further emotional compromise. In modern dating, men who ignore this phrase often experience frustration, lowered attraction, and repeated cycles of unbalanced investment. Acknowledging it as a red flag allows you to maintain emotional clarity and ensures that your time, energy, and attention are reserved for relationships built on mutual effort, respect, and appreciation. Ultimately, "you're too much work" is a clear, unambiguous message. Your contribution is undervalued, and your presence is not appreciated in the way it should be. If repeated or paired with consistent behaviors of avoidance or criticism, it is a sign to leave. Men who act decisively preserve attraction, maintain standards, and protect their emotional independence. Men, the words a woman uses are rarely accidental. They reveal her priorities, mindset, and how she values your time and energy. The 5 phrases we've covered: I don't need you. I can do better. I'm not ready for this. I don't want anything serious. You're too much work. I need space. And I'm not that into you, are not casual statements. They are clear signals about misalignment in interest, commitment, and respect. Ignoring them leads to wasted effort, frustration, and lowered attraction. The key takeaway is simple. Your attention, effort, and emotional energy are valuable. Men who recognize these statements and respond decisively preserve self-respect, maintain standards, and avoid unhealthy dynamics. Walking away is not rejection. It is a demonstration of confidence and clarity. Attempting to rationalize or overcompensate only reinforces imbalance and reduces your perceived value. In modern dating, emotional independence and boundary setting are your greatest assets. When a woman repeatedly communicates any of these phrases, it indicates that her priorities, investment, or intentions do not align with yours. Recognizing this allows you to protect your confidence, focus on mutual respect, and pursue relationships where effort and attraction are genuinely reciprocated. Ultimately, these phrases are warning signs, not challenges. Responding with awareness, decisiveness, and self-respect ensures that your time and energy are invested wisely. Leave when these messages appear. Maintain your standards and position yourself for relationships that are balanced, respectful, and fulfilling. Clarity, confidence, and self-respect are the foundations of attraction in the modern dating world.